Welcome to our Bible class hour this morning. In person or visiting us online, we have a special speaker, special opportunity today. Brother Keith Cassargent is with us. And as you could have seen on the screen just a moment ago, he's with the Bear Valley Bible Institute in Colorado. Before that, he was preaching for the Pikeville, Main Street congregation in Pikeville for many years, so many of us known him for a long time. He is working with Bear Valley, and he is the Director of International Studies, which means he works with preacher training schools all over the world. And I'll let him tell you the details because that's what he's going to be doing during our Bible class time this morning and then preaching for us at the 10:30 hour. So I'll let him tell you all about that. It's a great job. Takes him away from home in Prattville, Alabama quite a bit. But we appreciate the work that he does, and we've supported him in that work for many years. Brother Keith.
Good morning. It is good to be back with you. It always almost an annual visit, and it's hard to believe that so much time has already passed this year that it's time for my visit. Can you believe that the year is almost over? It's amazing how fast time flies. How many of you feel like you got an extra hour of sleep last night? You feel like it? Okay, not many of you seem like you feel like it. Maybe it'll kick in here before long. It's good to be back with you, though, to tell you about what's been going on that you've been involved with in your participation with me. A lot of good things have been happening throughout this year already, and I want to share some of those things with you. So the Bear Valley Bible Institute is located in Denver, Colorado. It's been in existence since 1965. To train preachers at the time was primarily for the western side of the United States. I don't live in Denver. I don't need to live in Denver, and I'm glad because I don't want to live in Denver. And if I did live in Denver, I still wouldn't be there half the time anyway because I'm traveling. And so I live in Alabama, but the work in Denver is great. They do a great job in Denver on training preachers on campus there. But in 1997, the first international school began. That one was in Ukraine, which, by the way, is still going on, and even during the war has barely been affected. They've had to move, but they've continued the work all through even during this war. That was in 1997, and the work has grown incredibly since then. About maybe 13 years ago, 12 years ago, I was asked to be the assistant director, and then 7 years ago, I think, they asked me to be the director of international studies. So rather than just tell you everything, and we don't have enough time to tell you everything, I want to share with you some of the new things that have happened since I was here last year. So that'll be what we focus on today, and I'm going to hope to leave a little time so that if you have any questions, I'd be happy to welcome those. What time do we finish? 12:40. He said 12:40 is when we finish. Y'all heard that. I didn't think the time went back that far. So 10:40 is when we finish? No? 10. I'll get a bell at 10:10. All right. We're getting there. All right. And now that we got that finalized, we've just lost 5 minutes. All right, let me tell you about some of the new things going on since I was here last year. Share some of the numbers with you. In the year 2014, when we ended, there were 17 schools that year. To this point this year, and this is where it'll stop. We're not going to start any more new schools this year, but there are now 62 schools around the world. And those 62 schools are in 31 different countries. And in fact, this year we began schools in 2 or 3 countries where we had never been before. So I'll tell you about some of those. And then we have, last year was the first time ever that the total number of students enrolled passed the 1,000 mark. That was really exciting. It wasn't something that we weren't trying to do that, but with the starting new schools, and some of these schools have a fair number of students in them, the enrollment last year was 1,019. I want you to think about the potential in 1,019 people who are being trained to preach and share the gospel. And most of these are in very fertile fields, very, very fertile soil. So you might imagine, and this is not difficult at all, to imagine that someone who, when they got out, even while they're in school, but especially when they're out of school, might baptize 25 people a year. That's nothing to think. That's a very conservative estimate. And just imagine they do that for 25 years. But anybody got the numbers on that? What's 25 times 25? Anybody know what that is? What's that? I mean, you got a calculator in your pocket. 625? 25 times 25? Yeah, I'm just going to do it. I thought somebody would bail me out and just tell me, but 625, he had it correct, 625. So just imagine 1,000 people who in their lifetime baptize 600 people or 1,000 people. Just you think about the numbers and the potential, it is amazing to consider. And if you think those numbers are maybe just way far-fetched, you just don't understand the situation. Because just last year, just among the students who are enrolled, they baptized almost 3,500 souls. In the last 5 years, our students, while they are enrolled, we're not talking about graduates, that's a much bigger number to try to track, but just the students enrolled in the last 5 years have baptized 17,000 souls while they are in school. So these are not far-fetched numbers at all to think about the potential of the number of souls being reached by these students. Let me share with you some of the new developments, and this is in Benin City, Nigeria. Now, Benin City is about 2 million people. You may not have ever heard of it, but that's the nature of the situation in Nigeria. Nigeria is I think it's the 5th most populous country in the world. 25% of all Africans are Nigerian. 53 countries in Africa, but one country holds 20% of the population. And the school in Benin City, Nigeria is going very, very well. This is their matriculation photo from the matriculation ceremony. I visited this school in May, and I got to tell you, it was incredibly rewarding. That particular day had been difficult. I got up really, really early in Lagos. Lagos is the biggest city of about 20 million. And I flew to a city called Warri, where we have a school, and I visited both locations there. Then I was to be driven to Benin, which is really not that far of a drive, except there were all kinds of problems that day, including an 18-wheeler had turned over in the middle of the highway, and traffic was blocked, and we weren't moving, and it was 95 degrees, and then the air conditioning in the little Toyota Corolla that I was in went out, and then so now not only were we literally dripping sweat, my shirt was stuck to my chest, had to have the windows down. Now the dust is coming in and out. It was a rough day. So what should have been an hour and a half drive ended up being about 5 or 6 hours. When I finally got to the school, they were still all there waiting for me. And but I will admit that while I'm sitting there on the road, not moving, dripping sweat, dust coming in and out, I'm thinking, what am I doing? I mean, what are you doing, man? Why are you here? What are you doing? What couldn't you be doing something else? And I got there, and I was reminded why I'm doing what I do. Because one of the students there stood up, and they have 50 students, 50. The day that school began, they had to have 2 locations because there were too many students for one setting, because we tried to keep them smaller for the academic environment. One of the men stood up and said, look, he said, a lot of us have been to Bible schools before, but we have never, and he said it that way, we have never had this level of education, this level of Bible training in our life. And what it has already done for us and the churches that we work with cannot even be imagined. And I knew then that's what this is all about. So the school there is doing very well. And many of the students are people who are already preaching and teaching somewhere. And so as they are learning, they are assimilating this knowledge into their preaching and their teaching, and it's making a difference almost immediately. This is a place called Owerri, Nigeria. This is another city that's a couple of million. You can see on the map it's near Benin, but far enough away that it's not practical that anybody in Owerri would go to Benin or other way around. We also have a school in Enugu, which is north of there, and then if you go up to Abuja, Abuja is where I will be preaching next Sunday. And because there's a school there's a school in Ibadan, there are 4 schools in Lagos, and that's not even covering all of the schools in Nigeria, but this is a new school in Owerri. This is a new school that began this year, and this is one of those ones where it is our first work in a particular country, and this country is the country of Chad. Now, typically there are 2 kinds of works where we have shied away from in the brotherhood. French speaking, we typically have not done much as a brotherhood in French speaking countries, and Islamic countries. And what you have in Chad is a French speaking, predominantly Islamic country. And when you are there, you realize you are not in Kansas anymore, because it is it's very different. When I went to do the survey trip, I flew there from Cairo. And on my flight from Cairo to N'Djamena, can you see N'Djamena just above Mundu? I've got this fancy thing. Let me see if I can. Yeah. Are y'all impressed by this? Jason's impressed by this, and I am too. N'Djamena, the city where the school is called Mundu, but right there in the middle is N'Djamena. That's the capital. N'Djamena, and if you look, do I have like a regular laser? Like if I want to make a line? Oh, I don't want to do all that. This thing is this is way too smart. Basically, you can look at the map, and there's brown and there's green. And typically where the brown is, that's going to be predominantly Muslim. And farther south you work towards the green, it becomes less and less. But N'Djamena is very predominantly Muslim. I don't remember the numbers, but even when you come down to Mundu, I think it's 56% Muslim. And on the flight from Cairo to N'Djamena, I believe I counted only one woman that was not in a hijab or a full burqa. And including full burqa, one lady, the hands were covered with gloves, the feet were covered with socks. Literally, you could only barely almost see her eyes. This is the setting that we're in. And you might think, well, is that dangerous? Well, not necessarily, because fortunately, the average Muslim is not what is portrayed in the radical events that sometimes happen in the world. And in fact, our school, some of our students and teachers, in the first 2 months the school was operating, they baptized one of the chief imams in Mundu. And when I read that, I thought, well, that's great. And then I thought, oh no, I wonder how that's going to go. But so far, so good. And they are reaching people. So we're training these guys that are coming from all over the country of Chad. We have 2 schools in Cameroon, which you can see is down to the south and west of there. And one of those schools is French speaking. There have always been students come from Chad to go to the French speaking school, because there was not a school at all in the country of Chad. And in the history of the Brotherhood in Chad, there's never been a school. Students have either gone to our school in Cameroon or to one in Benin or one in Ivory Coast where it's French speaking. And so they are excited. They are thrilled that their country finally has its own school, and now no longer do those men have to leave the country to go somewhere else. It's also costly for them to go other places. and to a point where it's prohibitive. So for them to have a school in their own country to train their own men is an answered prayer of theirs, and we are thrilled to be a part of it. This is Lilongwe, Malawi, and this school is unique in that it is only for families. This is the only one that we have. Of the 62, this is the only one like this. So Malawi is this really long, thin country in southern Africa, and Lilongwe is the capital of it. Well, there's a Bear Valley, Denver graduate who's been living there as a missionary for about 10 years now, and this was his idea. What if we had a school that was only for families so that men didn't have to leave their families behind to go to school or have to even face that dilemma? And so we said, well, we'll give it a shot. We'll see how this works. So the men go through the full training program. The women have a truncated program of their own. They're free to do the full program too if they want, but not all of them want to or can. And then the families live there. The kids go to school together. And it has been very successful. And this is one of our students. You can see that he is in a wheelchair. And this is his wife and children. And I just show him as just one of the examples. Because and here's one of the things to understand about the culture is the birth rate is so high. We look at that. When you look at that family, what do you think? That's a lot of kids. Well, no. 5 is pretty much average. There are 7 families at the school, and there are 60 people on campus. 7 families equals 60 people. And so the birth rate all across the continent is very high, and this school is doing well, and I think it's going to have been good for everybody, the entire family unit. And when they graduate and they go back to where they came from, they're all going to have more knowledge, more strength, and will positively affect the situations where they came from and go back to. All right, this is a place called Abia State, Nigeria. I want to tell you a little bit about this, a little background. This school, we did not start this school. In fact, this school started only 1 year after the school in Denver started. This school was started in 1966 and has a long history of training preachers. This is in the southeastern part of Nigeria, pretty close to Cameroon. And they have a long history, but the recent history hasn't been so good. And they recognize that. They have their own facility, they have their own board, but it hasn't gone as well as they wanted it to. And because of that, they reached out to us. And because they know of our work in other places in that country, and they said, we think you can help us raise the bar. And I said, well, I don't know if we can or not, but we'll look at it. After several meetings, I've been there twice. Our coordinator for that country has been there twice. Met with the board and all of these kind of things. We finally have about a year ago, maybe less than a year ago, agreed to partner with them. And they're using our curriculum, our standards, and all of those things. And they tell us that we have helped them to raise the bar. So happy to do that if that is something that is helpful for them. Here's another situation. We're really excited about this opportunity. A similar situation. All right, so about 30-something years ago, a team of Freed Hardeman graduates moved to Belo Horizonte, Brazil, to be missionaries. And at least 3 of those families were there for 30-plus years. And one of them I have known for many years. And he's the one that reached out to me because he said, all right, we've moved back and the other families moved back and the only remaining families getting ready to move back. We want you to help us to ensure that preacher training in this place continues to go well. In fact, we'd like to even raise the bar. Because this school already existed. This school's been going. The school actually began in Sao Paulo years before, but when it closed, they moved it to Belo Horizonte, and it's gone well. The man you see standing there on your right, his name is Alex. Alex is super sharp. He's a Freed-Hardeman graduate, also got his master's degree at Heritage in Florence, Alabama. And he has been teaching the school, and others have been teaching. One of the missionaries that moved back, had been the director, so now Alex is the director. So they reached out to us and said, help us to make sure things go well and help us do them even better. So I went down there and met with them in January, and I said, look, guys, I don't know that we can help you. I'd already done all the due diligence. I knew we were going to be open to this possible partnership. But I said, I don't know that we can help you. I'm not sure. I'm not going to presume that. And I met with the elders. They had 7 elders. And they said, no, we know you. We know your reputation. You will help us raise the bar. And which is quite a compliment. And we met and talked, and it was quite a process because they've got a curriculum and a system, and we've got a curriculum and a system, and try to merge those two has taken some time, but the partnership is now officially going. In fact, had a Zoom call 2 weeks ago with all of the guys on that side of things, with me and the president of Bear Valley on our side, and they are happy, we are happy. They are in the process now of interpreting our syllabi into Portuguese. We currently don't have anything in Portuguese. We've added to our Spanish and our French, but we didn't have anything in Portuguese, so it's going to be a bit of a process. But once this is done, not only is it going to help the school there are a lot of opportunities and needs in other Portuguese-speaking places. Brazil is the 6th largest, most populous country in the world. And I'm just looking at the map. You see Rio de Janeiro, 13 million souls. Belo Horizonte, you may not have ever heard of, 6 million. I don't know the population of Kentucky, but I know in Alabama we have 5 million. There's more people in Belo Horizonte, the city, than there is in the entire state of Alabama. And then if you look at Sao Paulo is 25 million. 25 million souls. So, and I was in all 3 of those cities. Just in those 3 cities, you're looking in excess of 40 million souls. There's a great need in that country, and to this point, we've not been able to have an opportunity to help. So we're thrilled that we might be able to help train some preachers for Brazil because they need it. And once we have that Portuguese curriculum, other places in Brazil, places like Mozambique, places like that are going to really open up a lot of possibilities in different places. So we're extra thrilled about this one, and this is just beginning. All right, here's another new school. This one just began a few months ago, Onisha Nigeria. How many of you have heard of Onisha Nigeria? Probably everybody knows where Onisha Nigeria is, right? Yeah, yes, I'm being facetious. You've never heard of it. I had never heard of it until they wrote me. But I want to share a little something with you. So the guy in the yellow is on the board. Remember I told you about the school that started in 1966? Well, he's on the board of that school, but he lives in Onisha. And when he started learning about the work we do in other places in Nigeria, and then now partnering with them in that school, he said, we need one in Onisha too. And by the way, we also have a school in Port Harcourt, and then there's Warri. Those weren't on the other map, but he said, we need a school in this city. So I began doing the due diligence. And when I was in Nigeria anyway, in May, I went by and did the survey trip, and it certainly was a great opportunity. The man in the yellow is on my left. The man on my right is named Solomon. He's the director for the school in Warri, which is about an hour and a half bus ride away. I asked him to meet me there because he will be a great resource for them as they start figuring out how to proceed with the school. Solomon is super, super sharp. He has a bachelor's degree in Bible and also has a law degree, and he has a master's degree in Bible from Freed-Hardeman. And so he is super, super sharp and very ambitious and helpful. And he is helping them as this school is getting underway. They have 25 students. And again, things are going well there, and they are thrilled that they have this opportunity. They're just grateful. Because you can imagine that maybe you've been doing some preaching and teaching because you love God and you're trying to help, but you've never had an opportunity to really learn, to really study. And then somebody brings this opportunity to you. And it's at no cost. There's no tuition. Well, you can imagine how grateful you would be, and they certainly are grateful as well. All right, so I've been we end at 10:10, or I get the bell at 10:10? Okay. I'm going to leave this here because I think I moved through faster maybe than I had even hoped to. I'll leave the website here and my email here. By the way, about once a month I send an email that has school reports, updates. If you would like to receive that, you can email me at that email address and just say add me, or you can catch me and we can do it right now on the app on my phone. So let me stop right here and ask if you have any questions or anything you want to say, or ask anything you wonder about, want to know more about, or clarification or anything. One, yeah, we have the one school in Ukraine. Yeah, it's been challenging, but they've hardly stopped during the war. When the war first broke out, so the school was meeting just south of Kiev, a place called Abia State. It's a really good place because it's centrally located. But being that close to the capital, it got a little dangerous, and so they moved the school to the west, which is more out of the fray. Because the fray has to do with mostly eastern and central Ukraine. So they went to the west. The school was only shut down for, 2 or 3 weeks. And then they resumed. They were at a church building in the west. And it's been a challenge, obviously. They had a call recently with the director. He believes, and we agreed to it because we agree, that the school needs to, for at least now, go online only, because he doesn't want everybody to be together in the same place in case something happens there. And so we agreed to that, and so students are now just in a variety of places in the country rather than being all together in school. I will say this: we track the number of students and the number of Bible studies and campaigns and baptisms and new congregations and all that kind of thing. Last year, in 2022, that school reported its highest numbers of baptisms in years. And that may sound counterintuitive, it may be surprising, but if you know how things work, it's not surprising. Because this war has brought people to a point where they're really seriously considering what really matters in life. And what if I die? And what then? And so the students and teachers in Ukraine baptized more people last year than they had in the previous several years put together. So that school continues to go, and keep them in your prayers. It hasn't been easy. In fact, the director is not sure that he's going to be able to stay in the country. He's got a daughter who's having a lot of traumatic stress problems and nightmares and emotional problems because of all that. I mean, when you hear air raid sirens and these kinds of things, and he's not sure what their future is going to hold. Yes? Yes, we work with 3 schools in India. Yeah. 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 Well, what he's saying, for those who might not have heard, that specifically for him, there were some people in India trying to, they were soliciting things, and he emailed me saying, "Hey, what do you think?" And and this is where, and I'm a little, I guess I'm a little uncomfortable to say this because it may sound self-serving. I promise it's not. One of the benefits of working with us in this is that this is what we do. And so we know. So I know, for example, I know of a school in India that we don't work with, whose budget is 4 times the size of the school budgets of our schools. And why is it so expensive? Because the U.S. brethren don't know any better. And so the guys over there say, yeah, it's going to take this much. And so they round up the funds and they send them over. But we live in this world. We know what the norms ought to be. And I get people all the time seeking some references about, is it really this much and what's normal and then that kind of thing. Also, my ability to drop in and surprise people has been helpful to us. I have one of our schools in India. I do every year, once a year somewhere, I drop in, surprise, unannounced. Because the only way you really know what's going on when you're not there is to just show up, right? Because if you say, hey, we want to come visit, and they'll say, yeah, come on, but they know you're coming. So my ability to just be flexible in my travel can allow me to. So every year I do that. I've already done that this year, and did one in India as well. I just had to know. I thought I knew, and the worst thing to know, to not know, is not what you don't want to know. The thing to be afraid of is what you don't know. And so even if it's what I don't want to know, I'd rather know it than not know it. But found them doing exactly what they're supposed to. Every time I walk in, the jaw drops. The collective jaw drops. Why are you here? Like, how did you get here? We didn't even know you were in the side of the world. But that's the beauty of being able to do that. So we have to be wise as serpents, harmless as doves, and the ability to have that knowledge, because this is the world that I live in, has been helpful to us and to our partners. Yes.
I know that in Nigeria there are multiple native languages, and I know that some of the Christian schools there use English as their primary language. Is that true at your school?
Yes. No, we don't require it. We work with schools that do not teach in English. For example, in India, all 3 schools teach in Telugu. And most of them know English, but there's really no benefit to teaching in English, except that many of the resources, your commentaries, your lexicons, things like that, are in English. But as long as they can still read English, that doesn't affect them at all. But in Nigeria, English is spoken everywhere. Now, it's a pidgin English, so you may not understand it. One time, I have preached in Nigeria, and they used an interpreter. I was preaching in English. They had an interpreter interpret me into English, and which is kind of a funny dynamic. And they teach in English there, not because we require it, but because that's the normal thing. Anyone else? Oh, I see a hand. Usim, U-S-I-M. Well, that's one of his names. He's got 3, which is the normal, format. And one of them is longer than my first and last name put together that I don't know how to pronounce. But so he's Solomon to me, and Usim. Yeah, this is a different Solomon. Yeah. Anyone else? I think we still have a few minutes. We haven't heard the bell yet. Well, that's a good question. It's a 2-year program. We have 2 models of schools. The full-time school where the students go and live and are in school full-time is a 2-year program. There are 48 courses in the curriculum, and they will take 24 per year. We also have extended schools, where the students will go to class 1 day a week, usually Saturday, for 8 hours per day, and so they'll complete 1 course per month. And that means they could complete the program in up to 4 or in as little as 4 years. And the beauty of that program is it allows people who have jobs and families to still get the same age. But it's the same curriculum, same expectations, same standards, but it allows people to not leave a job and a family to become a full-time student, because most people just can't do that. And those schools are by far the most popular because it allows, and also much more cost efficient as well. And I'm going to say of the 1,000 students, I'm going to say at least 600, maybe 700 are enrolled in those schools. And almost all of those, I'm going to say 60-70% of those are people who are already preaching and teaching somewhere and already had been. They just never had a chance to get this kind of education. Yeah. We go to church with their daughter. Just a little side point. I told them I was going to see you. Go ahead.
I have to get an interpreter as well. What was your schedule for travel?
My travel schedule this year? Oh, you mean like the number of countries or things like that? I travel a lot. Yeah, I do. Usually I'm in 15 to 20 different countries a year. And I think it's somewhere around that right now. And usually 150,000 miles in the air. And those are averages. And I think this has just been an average year. So I've been in Brazil and Peru and Philippines and Nigeria. And I just got back from South Africa, Tanzania, and Kenya. And on Thursday of this week, I'll leave for Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Ghana. And then when I get back, I'll be home. So it goes in spurts. People are like, are you ever home? Well, yes, I am. To the point that sometimes Kim says, don't you need to go somewhere? Average. The travel has been average, I think, 15, 20 countries and 150,000 air miles. And usually about 15 to 20 different airlines, some of which you've never heard of before. Some of them are like the name is, a wing and a prayer airlines kind of deal. Yes? Have we shut down any schools? Oh, yeah. Yeah, we would have a lot more than 62 if we weren't stringent. It can be for a number of reasons. Sometimes the number of students just goes to the point that the cost basis just isn't there anymore. We've had schools where the directors didn't want to communicate. We require regular updates. For the full-time schools, a monthly update. For the extended schools, a quarterly update. And some people, they want to communicate when it's time to receive their funds, but they don't want to tell you anything else. And we don't operate that way. It has to be a true partnership. So we've ended partnerships. Let me say it that way. That's probably the more precise way to say that. We have closed some schools because for a variety of reasons it was no longer effective. We've also ended partnerships where it became obvious it wasn't really a partnership. And so, yeah, there's been a number of times. And I get regular requests for new schools, and most of those never happen. Just because there's, you got to have a lot of things line up. There's a lot of work goes into it, and if we're going to be good stewards of the resources that have been entrusted to us, we have to make some decisions like that. Yeah.
When you do go for a survey trip, what are you looking for? What are the factors?
That's a really good question. When you go on a survey trip, what are you looking for? Well, I have a survey, a 3-page survey that they have to fill out to begin with. I'll start the conversation. If the conversation seems to be going well and they reply promptly, I'll send this survey. So on the survey is all kinds of information regarding the church where they are, the potential faculty and their academic credentials and things like that. So I'll already have a pretty good idea. From that, I'm going to decide whether a survey trip is warranted or not. And if it is, then one of the things I'm looking for, and they don't know this, y'all don't tell anybody, okay? This is just between us. It's not online, right? Is I'm trying to get to know them. And they don't realize that because they think I'm there to check out the possible location and all that kind of thing. But I need to know who I'm working with. And I vet them as thoroughly as I can. In fact, there are times I even vet the vetter. So this guy vouches for this guy, but I don't know this guy's got good decision-making abilities or not. So I'll call somebody, hey, do you know this guy? What do you think about him? So I've actually vetted the vetter because the real key is who are you working with? And anybody who's been in any kind of a partnership, you know that's what it really comes down to is who are you working with? And if you spend 3 days with somebody where they don't realize they're the main attraction, you spend 3 days with somebody, you'll find out who they are. They will reveal who they are, and how do they treat other people? Not how do they treat me. Of course they're going to treat me nice. How do they treat other people? I'm watching that. Things like that. So the number one thing I'm looking at is who are we going to potentially be working with? And then beyond that, it's the normal stuff, the location, facilities, the student sustainability is a big one because, yeah, maybe there's 15 students now, but in 4 years, what likelihood of sustainability is there? So a number of factors, but the number one thing is really trying to get to know the people we would be working with. Oh, hold on, there was a question here, and then I'll come back. So you're double dipping on the question, so I'm trying to be fair. Yeah, you had a question? Did you have a question back here? Yeah. Oh. No, it's the whole Bible. They're going to have an extensive course covering every book in the Bible, but then practical things like sermon preparation, delivery, hermeneutics, which is biblical interpretation, counseling, church planting, because a lot of these people are going to be going to places where the church does not exist. So how do they go about knowing even how to begin to plant a church? So there's a course in that. Congregational development. So working with the church, how can we implement a Bible class program? How can we implement a Thursday ladies deal and, all those kinds of things. So I feel like the curriculum is very well rounded, and you're going to get all the books of the Bible, but you're also going to get a lot of the practical stuff that you're going to need every day. Yeah.
I was just going to say, so when you start school, they have to have people from their country, their language, ready to teach.
Yes. That's another question. In the 62 schools, every one of them, in every school, I'm going to say 90% or even more of the courses are taught by local instructors. There's not enough of me to go around. And when I do travel, it's for survey trips. Occasionally I do teach still. But and so we have to vet those teachers. We have to see their academic credentials. By now, we've been doing this so long, a lot of them are our own graduates from other schools. They're going to be taught by local teachers. All right, well, I appreciate you and your partnership with us, and it's always good to be back here. And again, shoot me an email if you want to get those updates or catch me while I'm here.